My name is George Collins, and for nearly 3 decades, I was the first light in the halls of Horizon Data Systems. 28 years of unlocking the doors before dawn, crawling through server rooms when the AC failed, and mentoring every green technician who stepped onto the facilities team. I wasn't glamorous, but I was dependable, steadfast, silent, and present through every building expansion, every infrastructure upgrade, every emergency call at 2 a.m. I wasn't just part of the company's backbone, I was the person who made sure the bones didn't break. I never asked for much, never called in sick, never complained when holiday weekends disappeared into system outages or when I had to eat dinner from a vending machine next to a server rack. My pension was the one promise I clung to, the security I'd earned through blood, sweat, and time. I was 4 days away from vesting my full retirement benefits when I received a cold 2-line email. Subject: status change. Your position has been terminated, effective immediately. No handshake, no exit interview, no warning. The message came from Evan Parker, the newly appointed Chief Operations Officer, a man who had never spoken to me longer than a passing nod in the hallway. A man half my age with a Stanford MBA and a fondness for calling human employees assets. My first thought wasn't rage, it was disbelief. I stared at the blinking cursor in my inbox, waiting for more words that never came. I walked into the office like always at 5:15 a.m., hoping it was a mistake. Evan didn't look up from his laptop as he slid a manila folder across the table. We're streamlining facilities oversight. No hard feelings, George, just numbers. The conference room hummed with fluorescent indifference. Through the glass walls, I saw people I had trained, their faces flickering with unease but glued to their monitors. The badge I unclipped from my hip had faded from years of use. The keys to every electrical room and rooftop unit in the company jangled one last time in my hand. I laid them on the table, picked up the folder, and walked past the very ducts I had personally installed. The sun was just rising when I started my truck. The same truck I'd parked in the same corner spot for 28 years. I didn't drive off immediately. I sat there, feeling the weight of something not quite sadness, not quite anger. It was a quiet realization that somewhere along the line, loyalty had become a liability. In the weeks leading up to my dismissal, the air around the office grew dense with unspoken shifts, small enough to brush off, yet frequent enough to whisper warning signs. My name, once fixed at the top of every operations agenda, started disappearing from internal memos and project briefings. I chalked it up to clerical error at first. Then came the quiet revocation of my admin credentials. Access denied when I tried logging into the building control system I'd overseen for nearly 3 decades. I reported the glitch to IT. They said it was part of a new protocol. A younger man named Jacob Green had recently joined the facilities team. Barely 30, fresh out of grad school with a degree in logistics and a clipboard glued to his hand, he'd begun shadowing me on every inspection, every maintenance report, even during supply orders. He asked a lot of questions, too many for someone whose role was supposedly limited to junior oversight. I told myself it was part of his onboarding. But then, one Thursday morning, he asked where the backup server access panel was, something no new hire would know existed unless they'd already read my job description. Still, I said nothing. I had 4 days left. 4 days until my full pension benefits vested.
4 days until I could finally retire with my head high held. I just had to hold on until my final paycheck arrived. It came in a plain white envelope with a sticky note from HR. "Thank you for your years of service." I opened it in silence at my kitchen table. The numbers were wrong. At first, I thought maybe I'd miscalculated, but something didn't sit right. I pulled out my records, decades of meticulous tracking, every tax form, bonus stub, holiday shift. That's when I saw it. They'd listed my total years of service as 29 years and 10 months, just shy of the 30-year threshold required for full pension. It was a lie, a cruel, strategic lie. My actual hire date was December 12, 1994. I had emails confirming it, an offer letter, the original onboarding documents. I even had holiday pay logged from that very December. But someone had altered the official records to reflect a January start date, pushing me just outside the line. I sat there, heart pounding in my chest, eyes burning as I reread the number over and over. All the weekends I gave up, all the holidays I spent fixing frozen pipes or walking rookie hires through OSHA compliance. Gone. Erased. They hadn't just terminated me. They'd stolen my future security and bet on me being too old, too tired, or too proud to fight back. My hands trembled as I reached for the employee handbook, the one I kept tucked beneath my tax documents for exactly this reason. I flipped to the retirement clause. There it was. Full pension benefits vest upon 30 years of continuous service or upon reaching age 65. I was 64 years and 11 months. My pension was supposed to vest that Friday, and they'd fired me on Monday. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a calculated betrayal. I thought of all the managers who'd come and gone, and how I'd outlasted them not by politicking or playing games, but by showing up and doing the damn job. And this new guy, Dylan Ross, the MBA golden boy who never fixed a jammed door or covered a night shift during a storm, he had reduced me to a line item, a liability. That night, I didn't sleep. I pulled out every folder, every memo, every system printout I'd archived. I built my case the same way I'd fixed every broken thing in that building, with quiet resolve and an eye for details. They thought they were done with me. They were wrong.
The next morning, I sat at my dining table with a cup of black coffee going cold beside stacks of paper. The night had changed something in me. I wasn't just a man mourning the loss of his pension. I was a man piecing together the truth. If they thought I was too old or too slow to uncover what they had done, they hadn't been paying attention these past 3 decades. I started with the paper trail. Buried in my file cabinet was an old employee manual dated 2006, printed in thick, spiral-bound format. It was the last version issued before everything went digital. I remembered the update because I had helped distribute copies around the office. There, on page 73, under Retirement and Pension Benefits, it was clearly written, "Employees are eligible for full pension benefits upon reaching either A, 30 years of continuous service, or B, their 65th birthday, whichever comes first. Adjustments to benefits must reflect documented continuous service per payroll records and original hire date." I highlighted the line. My original offer letter, dated December 12, 1994, sat right beside it. Yet in the official termination paperwork, Dylan Ross, our new operations director, had marked my service at 29 years and 10 months. It was a blatant lie, or at least a cleverly timed misrepresentation. They had cut me loose just 4 days before I would have locked in what I had worked my entire adult life for. Then I remembered a memo, one that Dylan himself had sent just a month ago. I rummaged through my printed emails and found it. Subject line,
Clarification on retirement eligibility tracking. In it, Dylan had written, Crestlight Technologies remains committed to honoring all retirement eligibility policies per existing employee records. We advise employees nearing retirement to ensure their continuous service history is up to date. Any miscalculations should be reported for immediate audit. He had put it in writing, and now he'd done the exact opposite. That was when I picked up the phone and called Martha Reynolds. She retired 2 years ago, but before that, she'd been our internal compliance officer for 12 years. Martha was one of the sharpest, most principled people I knew. She was also one of the few people I trusted. She picked up after 2 rings. "James Rourke," she said, recognizing my number. "I heard something about your retirement getting disrupted." "That's one word for it," I replied, and laid it all out. The wrong date on my termination letter, the memo from Dylan, the discrepancy in the pension numbers, the shadow replacement who had been quietly learning my job. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was a pause. Then came her voice, even and firm. "You've got a case, James, a real one. What they did, it's not just wrong, it may be criminal. You need to file with the Department of Labor." I hesitated. At 64, I'd never been one to raise hell. I fixed things, I taught the new hires, I kept the lights on and the HVAC running. But as I looked around my quiet house, photos of my late wife, tools that hadn't been touched in months, reminders of every sacrifice I made for a future they just tried to rob, I realized something. They didn't fire me to save money. They fired me because they thought I wouldn't fight back. And that clarity was all I needed. "What do I do next?" I asked. Martha gave me a list. File the complaint. Document everything. Don't talk to anyone at Crestlight. And definitely don't post anything online. She warned me that the company would try to intimidate me, to paint it all as a misunderstanding. But with proof, and I had proof, the Department of Labor could take it from there. I opened a new manila folder and labeled it Crestlight Case Evidence. By midnight, it was stuffed with printed emails, scanned memos, pay stubs, vacation logs, and a photo of the old employee handbook. Everything was cross-referenced, dated, and in order. I even found a voicemail from HR dated 5 months ago confirming my eligibility for full benefits starting the week of December 10th. The next day, I walked into the Department of Labor's downtown office with the folder under my arm. And for the first time in a week, I didn't feel dismissed. I felt ready. The Monday after filing, I waited anxiously for a response, but I didn't wait long. By Wednesday afternoon, I received a formal email from the U.S. Department of Labor. They had reviewed my submitted documents, acknowledged receipt of the complaint, and, to my surprise, requested an in-person meeting. They didn't waste time. An investigator named Daniel Garrison called me directly the next morning. "Mr. Rourke," he said, "we've seen preliminary evidence of discrepancies that may warrant a broader investigation. Can you be here tomorrow morning at 9? "Absolutely," I replied. I arrived 10 minutes early, manila folder in hand, heart thudding. Daniel was a tall, composed man in his late 30s with a no-nonsense air. Beside him sat Agent Maya Hollis, another investigator from the department's compliance division. They asked for a timeline. I started from the top. My hire date, the memo from Dylan, the adjusted service record, the timing of the termination, just 4 days shy of pension vesting. What I didn't expect was how closely they were already looking into Crestlight. Maya slid a printed spreadsheet across the table. My name was on it, along with 4 others, employees I remembered well, all in their 60s, all longtime staff who'd been terminated under similar restructuring excuses within a few weeks of their own eligibility dates. At the top of the sheet, in bold, I read, Legacy Cost Reduction Plan, FY23. "Recognize that?" Daniel asked. My mouth dried. No, but it's exactly what they were doing. We've obtained internal communication logs from Crestlight's mail servers. They were flagged in a separate case and passed along to us. What we found backs up your claim and then some. I leaned forward, feeling the heat rise in my face. Tell me everything. They shared excerpts from emails between Dylan Ross and the company's VP of Finance, conversations about right-sizing for profitability and maximizing ROI by sunsetting legacy costs. Phrases like monitor pension milestones for potential early exits and neutralizing vesting liabilities through calendar alignment filled the pages. One email stood out, sent just 6 weeks ago. James Rourke's service anniversary falls just shy of quarter rollover. Ideal candidate for workforce optimization strategy. Confirmed service record reflects December 1995. If not, recode per HR override protocol. I stared at the printout, stunned. They hadn't just ignored my tenure. They had manipulated it. This isn't just shady, Maya said. It's fraudulent, especially if benefits were denied based on knowingly altered records. You're not the only one, James. You may have opened a much bigger case than you thought. I sat back in my chair, the weight of it settling in. I hadn't been paranoid. I hadn't overreacted. I had been targeted, as had others. Daniel continued. We'd like your permission to use your documentation to formally open an expanded investigation. If we can verify a pattern of pre-vest termination and deliberate manipulation, this will become a federal labor fraud case. You have my full cooperation, I said without hesitation. Good, Daniel nodded, because your paper trail is gold. That evening, I called Martha and told her everything. She wasn't surprised. She always had a gut feeling about Dylan. He's the kind who confuses efficiency with cruelty. She put me in touch with 2 other former Crestlight employees, Renee Morales and Wendell Thomas. Both terminated just weeks before their pensions kicked in. Both had clean records, full HR performance reviews, and, most importantly, detailed personal files just like mine. Within 48 hours, I met with them in a quiet booth at a local diner. We compared notes. We shared dates. Patterns emerged. Selective performance reviews filed after years of glowing feedback. Sudden memos citing budget tightening. Mysterious IT audits just before terminations. It was systemic, calculated. I could see the fire return to Wendell's eyes as he clutched a crumpled performance memo from his last week. They thought we wouldn't talk to each other, he said, that we'd just fade into retirement without a fight. Renee looked over. But James started the fire. We're not fading. We're waking up. By the end of that week, the Department of Labor had subpoenaed Crestlight's internal communications, payroll systems, and termination records going back 5 years. Investigators uncovered a running optimization tracker spreadsheet listing over a dozen names, benefits projections, and the exact week each employee was expected to hit their retirement threshold. The nail in the coffin? A recorded Zoom call from 3 months prior where Dylan casually said to the HR director, "We've got to clean house before year end. If that means shaving a few weeks off someone's milestone, so be it." But I had been counting. 4 days. 4 days stolen by a man who thought people like me were just a line item in his quarterly report. And now that arrogance
was coming back for him. By the following Monday, the quiet hum of justice had grown into something thunderous. I received a formal notice from the Department of Labor's Legal Division. Parker Calloway, Crestlight CEO, and Clara Green, head of human resources, were officially under federal investigation for fraudulent termination practices. They were scheduled for sworn interviews that Friday, and I was to testify next. I'll never forget walking into that government building. Clean floors, marble halls, fluorescent lights buzzing above my head. Not unlike the hallways of Crestlight, except this time I wasn't fixing a thermostat. I was fixing my life. The lead federal investigator, Maya Hollis, welcomed me with a calm nod. Her partner, Daniel Garrison, laid out a stack of papers, my sworn affidavit, recorded internal emails, time-stamped spreadsheets, proof that Parker and Clara hadn't just made a mistake. They had orchestrated a campaign of fraud. "We believe this scheme stretches back 3 years," Maya said. "But your documentation, Mr. Rourke, makes it undeniable." At the same time, Crestlight's corporate board was facing pressure from regulators and media outlets. Whispers of pension fraud had made the front page of the Kansas City Business Journal. Then CNBC picked it up. In 2 days, Crestlight's stock plummeted by 19%. The next morning, I woke to a text from Renee Morales. "Clara Green resigned. It's all over the news." Then another from Wendell. "Boards suspended Parker. He's being replaced. Interim CEO already announced." They're panicking. I didn't feel triumph. Not yet. Because I knew there'd still be a push to silence us. And sure enough, that afternoon, my phone rang again. This time, it was Darren Minton, Crestlight's legal counsel. "James," he began smoothly, "we understand there have been developments. The board would like to propose a resolution. Quietly, professionally." I said nothing. "We're prepared to reinstate your full pension, backdate the benefits, and offer a settlement of $65,000 for your inconvenience. In return, you'd agree not to testify publicly or pursue further legal action. We think that's more than fair." Fair. That word hit me like a slap. I said, "Tell Parker he's 29 years too late for fair. You'll get my answer after I testify." I hung up. The next morning, I met Janice, my retired HR friend turned advocate, for breakfast at the diner near the DOL office. She was already flipping through her notes. "They're scared," she said plainly, "and they should be." Her eyes met mine. "James, if you stand firm, you won't just be getting your benefits. You'll be setting a precedent. This isn't about one man's pension anymore. This is about all of us." I nodded. I knew she was right, and I was done being afraid. That Friday, I gave my full deposition under oath. Then I testified again before a joint panel reviewing Crestlight's federal compliance. The questions were direct, sometimes personal. I was asked to recall years of events, names, timelines, but I never faltered. Every piece of evidence matched what I had kept in my dusty boxes of records. Over the weekend, more employees came forward, some still at Crestlight, some long retired. All had stories of similar terminations. Some were small, missing 1 week of service. Others had pensions erased entirely due to errors in HR logs. The DOL opened a public inquiry. Local news aired a special. Soon a class action was forming with over 20 former employees. Crestlight, once seen as a stable Midwest tech firm, was now under siege, not from a competitor, but from its own conscience. By Wednesday, My story had gone national. I declined interviews. This was never about headlines. It was about dignity. Late that week, I received a certified letter from the Department of Labor. Your pension has been fully reinstated, all benefits to be paid retroactively. Formal restitution to follow. Crestlight Technologies has been placed on a federal watch list. The investigation remains open. A few days later, a courier dropped off a second envelope at my door. A handwritten letter from Parker Calloway. It read, "Mr. Rourke, I underestimated you. I confused quiet with weak, routine with replaceable. I was wrong. You were never just an employee. You were the backbone of this company. I hope someday you'll accept an apology, not for the business decision, but for forgetting you were a person who built this place one bolt at a time." Parker Calloway. I folded the letter and placed it in the back of a drawer. I didn't need it. Because my next call was to the Department of Justice. I asked a single question. Is Parker being charged? The answer came clear. Wire fraud, conspiracy, interference with federal retirement programs. We're seeking prosecution. I hung up, and for the first time in months, I took a deep breath. I hadn't just stood up. I'd held the line. And the foundation I'd laid with wrench and wire turned out to be stronger than the empire that tried to bury me. As I stood in my daughter's living room, watching her place the solid oak bookshelf I had finally built with my own two hands, I felt a deep, unexpected peace settle in my chest. After everything, nearly 3 decades of service, betrayal just days before retirement, the humiliation of being cast aside like a spreadsheet line item, I had finally found clarity. I had spent years believing loyalty was always repaid with respect, that hard work spoke for itself, but reality had been far harsher. Brandon and Patricia had treated people like me as disposable, obstacles in their financial strategy. But they were wrong. And thanks to Janice's guidance, my meticulous records, and a fierce sense of justice, we proved that. Every moment of that long battle, every sleepless night, every legal hurdle led to more than just personal vindication. It unearthed a pattern, protected others, and shone a light on a system that too often fails the very people who keep it running. My pension was restored, my name cleared, and the respect I thought I'd lost returned in the most public of ways. But the greatest reward wasn't financial. It was hearing my daughter say, "I'm proud of you, Dad." It was standing in that courtroom, head held high, not just for me, but for everyone who'd ever been told they were too old, too costly, or too easy to replace. This experience taught me that sometimes justice doesn't come from rage or revenge, but from resilience, from refusing to let others rewrite your story, from trusting that truth, even when buried, can still rise. So if you're watching this and you've ever been underestimated or discarded, remember this: you are not invisible. You matter. And sometimes just one well-kept file, one honest voice, and one brave phone call can change everything. Bill says, if this story resonated with you, please leave a comment below. Share your own story of resilience. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories of strength, justice, and redemption.